Right, need to close that off. Right, so just want to give you my retrospective on 80's television adverts. I should say commercials, wherever you are coming from in the other part of the world. This was uploaded originally by Gothard. And let's get to it. Advertising.
Long, innit? The gardeners are one the grass that's left.
Advertising has come a long way since its beginnings, that started off as printed word in the 1920s onwards. As time got on, as the keen interest from the printed word to the television screen has become an evolution. Since television was invented by John Logie Baird. But to say that advertising in television took off in the United States years or so later. But the head of broadcasts over here, during through the trip in the United States, saw this thing called advertising, and the thing is how you can incorporate that over here. So it was another concept, and how to gain interest. Before advertising got glamorized, and that majority of advertising was mainly made by small independent companies that was advertising their own shops on regionalized television, and for the chains that was nationwide across certain parts of the country became an innovation, and some went into the wacky realms of animation and using animals to promote their products. Started off with the PG chimps in the 1960s. That became a popular trend, and then it went on to the bizarre realms of using Martians to make a mock satire on how humans make mashed potato, and a stop motion skeleton promoting a videotape. And every advertising was unique of its own, that led to the popularization on how advertising became a cultural aspect. And some was guaranteed as short films, like the Hamlet cigar adverts. But how it all started off with the advertisement was in the 1960s. A brand of toothpaste called SR started the whole advertising boom, and since then more companies got interested, and that some adverts were directed by independent film directors who he gained to love today when they got into film. The likes of Ridley Scott, he started his career directing advertisements for films for brands like Macintosh and all sorts of other products, and he got his start in advertising. And some advertising became world national treasures, like the PG Tips Chimps, the Scotch Videotape Skeleton, and many others. But the song used in the Scotch advert re-recording of Fade Away started off as a song by Buddy Holly. Then it got reworked by the Rolling Stones, and that led to the genesis of the re-recording of Fade Away song in the advert. And the Hello Touch, I've got a Toshiba with the blueprint guy, that became a parody in itself by Alexis Sale by Hello, have you got a new motor and all that lot. It became a world medium and that. But many adverts starred up and coming and well established TV actors like Christopher Ellison in the Guinness advert playing the car mechanic, and Glenn Murphy, who went on to be in the show London's Burning, and so many actors and that appeared in advertising end up being in the bill, and so many others. But on the other side of the spectrum, most of the advertisement was localized to that Pacific region. You can show the local adverts. And other advertisements for confectionery and other brands were beamed across the United Kingdom. And it became a cultural trend. But advertising also took risks in its subjects. Like he was no shy and that cultural stereotyping ethnicities in animation in the advertisements for Kiora and that, unlike today where everything's got to be heavily politicized, that type of thing. And it became a risky gamble in the 1980s. And some became a mini series of adverts like the Nescafe Gold Blend starring Anthony Head, who went on to play Giles in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. and that and many other cultural aspects. So it became a cultural shock. Some adverts finally made their way onto the big screen, but they have to meet the same standards as film trailers, and that by being approved by the British Board of Classification, in which they had to be approved and be fit for broadcasting, and they're given a certificate for that age appropriate film that was showing. So they did try bringing that certification into television, but it was a short-lived experiment. So in order for any advertisement to do with adult subjects and that, they had to be shown at appropriate time, which is the 9 a.m. not 9 a.m. 9 p.m. watershed, to compliance with the time, due to the fact the subject matter. And demands other things in the spectrum and the media of things. And some went too far with the mediocrity of advertising in the 1990s, which ended up having to be self-regulated by forming a separate body from other television programming in the early 2000s called the Advertising Standards Authority, that took control of advertising. That can put sanctions against the advertising companies that made adverts because of the whole subject matter. However, some of them did fall foul to the ban hammer, like the 1990s slew of adverts for Tango soft drink made by Britvic, and due to the fact it was enticing unruly school behaviour of kids going around and reacting the scenes from the adverts and that, so they had to be changed, and that to prevent copycatting. And in the early 2000s, a slew of them was heavily changed or banned, with the likes of the Xbox advert that features a pregnant woman giving birth and the baby flew out the window, gradually ages and dies by crashing into the tombstone, because that was shown very early at the time where kids were up and watching kid-friendly programming and that. So that got sanctioned and that, and the other advertisement that's also fell foul was a brand of noodle-based snack for pot noodle by Golden Wonder, with the slogan "the slag of all snacks which got changed to it's dirty and you want it." But even that didn't save it, and they still got banned, and because they took risks way too far. But in today's climate and that, things are so heavily politicized and that. But take the clock back to the 80's, where things got a big risk taken, and that some aspects of advertising they managed to pull off. Features women eating a Cadbury's flake in various sexy, provocative scenarios and that, and other risks that came into place. But most of them was done to the great success of become a cultural phenomenon, especially ones that were so done with animation for the likes of Lamet Pills. That was animated by Tony White. That advert got showcased in a film festival over in New York, and it garnered so many awards, it was unbelievable. So that became a cultural phenomenon in itself. Likewise with the smash potato Martians and that. And with the cultural aspect of advertising that came a long way, long come the 90's, when the internet starts taking off worldwide. They started forming dedicated archivic sites to advertising, with the likes of TV Arc that started in '97, and the role many years later when the rise of YouTube, fans across the UK and all over the world were started uploading archives of their favourite advertisements, which gain a cult following in itself. And some of them stood the test of time. Even audiences today can look back on old advertising and that could appreciate the creativity process that went into making the advertisements, and it became a popular trend. Some of them took ages in that sourcing the original adverts from tape, make sure they was cleaned up and curated and that, ready for uploading to show people of what advertising were like back in the day. So kind of like it took off leaps and bounds. As a fan of advertising and that, I even saw quite a lot of compilations of commercials from other countries like Australia and the United States to see how they did adverts and that. Some of them was amazing in that when it goes to the likes of the Canadian counterparts and that, some of them was top heavy than others, but some was well done in those territories and that to show adverts that could be shown over here with very tweaks and changes to the voiceover and the creative aspects of that. So kind of like if it wasn't for the likes of these archive sites and YouTube, we won't be sitting here today talking about how great they were conceived and made, and some of them won't stand the test of time and got a cult followings like they did. And it become a huge appreciation. That type of thing is like a work of genius. So kind of like if it wasn't for YouTube, I won't be seeing American adverts with an old lady at the butcher's yelling, "Where's the beef?" because they wouldn't have exist if it wasn't for YouTube and that, which was a great appreciation of us give to them and they give back. We give to them how we do advertising in this country so they can appreciate it, and on the other side they give to us a shun on how they do advertising slash commercials and that. Some of them went into very large budgets, like get loads of celebrities together to advertise as gifts for Christmas and that, to that realms of big budget advertising. And some of them was done exceedingly well, but they're on the cheaper side, where certain companies and that today advertising comprise of still shots of the business with the voiceover and that. In in that slideshow presentation. But when it comes to other companies and that, they go on location to film the shop and etc. And some of them come with well-made jingles. And speaking of jingles, some advertising did have great memorable jingles, like the Just One Kineto and Scotch videotape and the Turkish Delight advert, which all had memorable tunes that resonate in people's heads. And it became a great source of medium. So kind of like the Ajax advert, how they showed it to be spelled backwards. You're thinking that people out of them flipped the image backwards, but it wasn't. It was done that way to prove a commentary and satire aspect of the advertising. And some of did go into the thought-provoking side about going into the top heaviness of the dangers of drinking, driving and drugs related stuff. So kind of like in Scotland, there was this drink and driving awareness advert called Drive Like an Idiot, Die Like an Idiot, featuring Christopher Eccleston, that went on to play in Doctor Who when it was rebooted, which alongside stars Billy Piper. And many accomplished actors in that did advertisements for both the TV and the cinema. And some actors had a unique distinctive voice, with the likes of John Hurt, who did quite a lot of voiceover work on advertisements and that kind of thing, because he had the unique voice, and it became a cultural aspect and that. And for the purpose of this BT Business advert, the reason why I had to mute it, because it comes with copyright songs. For this one, it came with a song called Private Investigations by Dire Straits. I didn't want to hit by a copyright claim, so that's why the purpose of this commentary is played over by a video that has the sound muted and that. So it gave a cultural voiceover to telling the narrative, and which is done incredibly well in some of these advertisements. But like I said earlier, if it wasn't for these wonderful sites that we grow and love today, things like this won't be curated and treated and shown. because it took quite a lot of work of sourcing all the material and that. And it become a cultural aspect. Other adverts that became a length of shorts was the Otso Family, starring Neil Redfern and the late Linda Bellingham, which became a cultural phenomenon, showing the everyday family doing absolutely everyday family stuff. What was they all gather together, have a family meal, which that isn't on display much these days due to the realms of the internet and that, which everybody's off doing their own separate thing. There's no time for great togetherness and that, for family meals and that. And it goes to show how great it is. And how people grown to love advertising and commercials as they are today. And there's a dedicated community built around it. So kind of like in other mediums, there's a dedicated community built around the distributionalization of logos at the beginning of films and home video distribution tapes and etc. And that becomes a form of art medium with itself. When I get round to it, I'm gonna do a retrospective on that to show to you on the look back and the creative aspects of how they were done, and all sorts of other creative things that will be coming to this channel one way in about a month's time and that. So this was a start of that, showing you the creative aspects on how they were done, just to show you all the fans and enthusiasts out there and how it was done, and all the thought process and that, and all the crafting and conceptualization that went into getting these advertising done ready for people to see on their own televisions. We roll into the 21st century, people can watch them on their smartphones, their tablets, any kind of handheld device that has a app for YouTube, which you can watch it on the go. And so they can appreciate the nostalgia, because it's so big at the moment, where things from the past you get to appreciate with the generation spectrum of today. And it was a great phenomenon aspect about that. And to gleam to the whole cultural phenomenon that people will show today kids, just to get them to become fans themselves, so they can talk about it. If they want to form their own communities of advertising enthusiasts and that. So it ends up becoming a generational thing in many more years' time to come, as long as these archive sites still in the public domain, so people can watch and discuss and do their own critiques and retrospectives about the whole creative aspects of advertising / commercialization, and to pick their all-time favorites. So kind of like mine's are Lamont Pills, the Smash Martians, the Scotch videotape skeleton, to say it started off of scaring the living hell out of me when I was a kid, but when I rewatched them way back in 2006 or 2007 on this site called TV Arc, I come to learn to appreciate how ridiculously stupid and silly it was. So I become fondness of the creative flow of went into that advertising. So kind of like, if it wasn't for these companies and products to be shown on TV, we won't have 0.5% of the products what we have in our own home that became live on TV. So kind of like the Bisto Gravy Boat in that show. Some people that are ad enthusiasts and that got one of them in their own home, and they also must have bought one of the Instant Smash Martians and that as a bit of a nostalgic piece to show the friends and that being a cultural phenomenon, get people to get into collecting pieces themselves. And some brands they see on TV back in the day has long gone out of business, like our Price and Woolworths, respectfully. But the memories of those companies still live on for the realms of retro advertising and that can be a cultural appreciation of the memories that gone into those places and buying the products. And it became a fondness of the nostalgic flow. I used to go into Woolworths and Our Price a lot because there was two of my favorite stores where I could go buy mainly CDs and the odd occasional VHS. Because of the fondness and nostalgic memories of going into those places and seeing them advertised on television. I sit back and look at old adverts for Woolworths and Our Price and have those fond memories of going to those places. Because of that all gripping of the nostalgic feel to that, and sure, many people who also went into places like Our Price and Woolworths had that same fondness of nostalgia and will still have memories of going to those places. Because of the realms of television and now with the rise of the internet and that nostalgic flow to the feel of seeing things that you used to love and cherish in the realms of retrospective archivic advertising. And some of these brands that was out back then are no longer in circulation, are being rebranded as other names and that. But then again, the original products under the original names still resonates and lives on with good feels of nostalgia. And some of them will still lived on future generations to come. And etc. And this is a huge beauty about of seeing these fans who went through the collection of archive footage that make sure that it's well curated and polished and that for people to see, and again appreciation for all the work it went into the whole creative aspects of showing the advertising to the masses. And some advertising from other countries that was shown over here, like the Castlemaine 4X advert, to say that it was brewed in this country. It was originated in Australia. And to see these adverts that were filmed in the outbacks of Australia, people get to see how the Australians do advertising in Australia to show people in countries like this and the United States, and how they did advertising, and vice versa. And like I said earlier on, some advertisements features top name stars in the business. They still have a prolific careers to this very day, with the likes of Joanna Lumley, who went on to star in Ab Fab. She starred in a show in the 1970s called The New Avengers, and other works of television. And with this advert here features Stephen Fry, who went on to be a co-pairing with Hugh Laurie, who went to over the United States to be in the show House. And Hugh Laurie also was another British acting alumni to appear in adverts. And Stephen Fry also starred in a lot of Hollywood films. He did voiceovers for computer video games, mostly in DLCs for Bungie's Destiny 2 DLC for Warmind, because Stephen Fry has that kind of range. Wherever demand, he will do it. So kind of like advertising is one of them. And the advertising creativity stems way back into the 1960s in this country with SR toothpaste and the first of series of Hamlet, the mild cigar, which was manufactured by Benson and Hedges. And it became a cultural phenomenon with its own right, because it felt like more of short films and that. The most popular one is the guy with the receding head at the photo booth getting his photograph taken, but failing dismally. That actor turns out to be no other than Gregor Fisher, who went on to be in Rabsy Nesbitt. And the other advertisements, the guy in the beach at the Barclay Lawn advert, that turned out to be Charles Organs of Queeg and Tongue-Tied fame from Red Dwarf, who was also a choreographer. That often worked alongside Danny John Jules and so many other actors in the show business. And many other actors and actresses and that appeared in advertisements in the 1980s. in the chocolate advert, the young woman who in it was Glynis Barber, who was an established actress in this country, starring shows like Blake Seven and Tales of the Unexpected. But she didn't came in claim to fame until 1984 with the TV show Dempsey Makepeace that starred her husband Michael Brandon, which became a cultural phenomenon with its own right, to draw parallels to other shows like Miami Vice and that. And that's another future topic for a later video. But this is going about the creative aspect of advertising, since it came a long way from being a printed word to something that's shown on TV and at the cinema, and how it became a cultural phenomenon from there onto computerized gadgetry like laptops and consoles and tablet devices, which can watch videos on the go, and to give that full fondness and feelings of nostalgia. To give that creative flow and aspect of all the treasured memories that still lives on to this very day. And some of them was a work of genius. It's whether you grow to learn to appreciate them. And yeah, it became a long passion of mine to do a retrospective like this, because of the tools that I have. Years ago it would have been nigh down impossible to do it, because I did not have much to go on in order to do it at the more semi-professional level. Like it was, most of my works was done by me sitting at the camera, showing it on the TV screen and talk about it at the same time. But that doesn't always have that creative flow and do it justice. But now, of the wonderful gadgetry I've got, now I could do it this way, and it's a lot better way to do it. So yeah, what is the great takeaway of all of this? The great fondness and appreciation of the aspect flow that went into to be appreciation, thanks to the memories what we have, to everybody that's contributed in order to restore those memories and the fondness and the feelings of the nostalgic. This advert here for Toshiba was another fan favourite advertisement that was on during through Boxing Day alongside the Scotch videotape advert that was played halfway through films like Ghostbusters and all sorts of other aspects. And like I touched on earlier, the Hello Tosh Got Toshiba theme was parodied by Alexis Hale. Likewise with the re-record No Fade Away song in the Scotch videotapes adverts, it was a parody on Not Fade Away by Buddy Holly and the Rolling Stones. Because these days it became a cultural aspect and phenomenon and popularization and things like that. And I do slightly apologize for having slight pauses and that due to the fact that the computer I have has a tendency to go into sleep mode, so I apologize in advance. I hope it didn't ruin the enjoyment of your viewing. So kind of like this advert here for Smith stars Lenley Henry, who started his career on a kids magazine show at the end of the 70s decade, where he made a gaff calling Trevor McDonald, and yeah, and Lenley Henry also was another guy that had a comedic range in that. He later on to marry Dawn French, who was another British comedian and actress that also starred in a series of adverts during through the 90s and the turn of the new millennia, which is for a brand of Terry's chocolate orange. However, it was not all roses and that behind the scenes. To say that Dawn French she came close to so many times to be sick, as she lamented in the interview going on about her times during the series. But then itself become a cultural phenomenon. They gained a cult following. The most favourite of the ones she did was the Christmas one, which she was in seductive red silk, acting and talking all sexy in that. That became a cult following with itself, and it became a creative form of medium. Did those adverts and that. and it was great to show the fondness of nostalgia. I've gone with you guys about how advertising in this country became a cultural phenomenon. To say it's coming towards the end, I would do what I thought about the memories and my outro. And it's great of getting around to doing something like this that I've been wanted to do for so long. It'd be something kind of like a passion project. If it wasn't for the realms of YouTube and that, it would have been impossible to do so. But we thank you to YouTube and all those people in the advertising community who restored their fondness and memories and spent hours of curating and going through all the archives and that to make sure that they've been preserved to show to the masses. My debt goes on to them. So my thoughts about it are, yeah, it was a great way of looking back on the cultural aspect and phenomenon of advertising, and all credit goes to Mark Gothard, who uploaded this presentation, and that all the credit is goes to him in order to preserve the creative flow of this look back on the nostalgia. So I hope you enjoyed this look back as I did narrating it, and I hope that you share it on Facebook, Twitter, and all sorts of other media sites that you can share stuff to, and if it does well, I will be doing more of these so when I have time. And because it takes long to watch all the footage in order to process it, in order to gather the thoughts, in order to make sure the overlay that's working fine, and so I can get on and talking about it, make sure that it's muted because any copyright concerns and that through the audio, and make sure that's turned off, and so I can speak over it in a narrative flow. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Frankie, Smales. All the social media links will be in the description bar below. And to be notified on future content, please hit the notification button, because the algorithm is out of sync at the moment. And thanks for watching wherever you're in the world. Have a great evening, morning, noon or night. Stay safe, fare well, and may the force be with you. And in the great words of Stanley, Excelsior, and have a great time going over the nostalgia, and fare thee well.